Hi, she was 7. Okay, so I'm sorry. I'm trying to get better light. I'm doing a video today about raising your frequency, raising Atlantis. Okay, I got a question about is Atlantis and Lemeria rising on Earth? What's happening with Earth? Blah, 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 blah. Okay, so not blah, 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 but you know. And I always like to answer things from a spiritual perspective, so that's what I'm going to do. I already made a video, but I kept rambling, and so I just made some notes. So I'm just going to stick to my notes, okay? Okay, so as we all know, there are parallel realities. There are other counterparts of ourselves in these realities. And we are in constant communication with all of our incarnations, be it past, present, future, higher frequency, lower frequency selves. We are all in connection and in communication with all of those selves, whether we are aware of it or not. Sometimes we visit places in our dreams that we are or have been in other dimensions and whatnot. Sometimes we see the future or a future-like place, and we're actually in it. That's us there already. So, and then a lot of people have, said, I've been to these crystal cities or these floating cities, and it looked all futuristic. Well, you were actually witnessing your higher or alternate self in that reality. Okay, this is how a lot of people kind of prophesize, or this is why a lot of people see similar things in their dreams or astral travels or reality, because those realities exist. So more than one person is going to actually experience them. It's not just one unique experience to one unique person. There are many people who have been to the crystal city or to inner earth or to other dimensions and whatever, and they all describe them very similar. So you have to realize that there are other dimensions and parallel existences to ours that we are already in right now. Okay, so so when we see these images in our head, in our dream, in our meditations, or whatever, it's kind of like we're downloading bits of information from our future selves, and when you experience deja vu, that's the same thing. It was one of your selves looking at yourself already. Okay, it was like looking in the mirror. When you look in the mirror, it's like deja vu, right? When you look in the mirror, you see yourself right now saying what you're saying right now, and the only difference between looking in a mirror and talking to yourself and experiencing deja vu is that you feel like it has happened already. And when you feel like it's happened already, it's because it has. And you're looking down or side or up at your other self at that exact moment. Okay. So, and these are simply vibrations and frequencies, okay? A lot of people don't understand this, but I'm trying to find this in my notes, but okay, as our vibrations and our knowledge increase, so does the knowledge and the vibration in our other selves. Okay? They increase. This is why a lot of people are saying the Atlantis and Lemeria are rising again and coming out of the water, because our consciousness is rising as well. And when our conscious rises, so do our lower conscious selves. It has to rise as well. And so do our higher conscious selves. That has to rise as well. Do you remember in the Bible where it says, in my house there are many mansions, or there are many mansions? That's the same thing. A mansion is the same thing as a dimension. Mansion. Get it? Okay. So as we grow in this dimension, we grow in every dimension. Okay, that's why it's very important to keep yourself in knowledge. And a lot of people know this, and they use it against, people in the world. Like, there is a conspiracy to keep the frequencies low, because because of certain things. If certain things change, then everything changes. You get it? So they want to keep your frequencies down, so they create terrible situations on Earth, and a lot of people call them false flags, or stuff that's done on purpose to create panic and fear and hate, which are the lowest vibrational feelings that one can have. So if I'm lowering your frequencies, I'm lowering everything back to where it's supposed to be, so that we can maintain this, what they call matrix, or this dimension as is, unchanging, death. Okay? When something is stagnant, they just describe it as dead. And this is why the law of balance is so important, because no matter what, they can only manipulate it for so long before the pendulum swings the other way. And that's what's happening now. That's why you see these things all over Earth, and portals opening in the ocean and whatnot, because as our frequency and vibration and knowledge grows higher, so do our lower selves, so do our former selves, so do our future selves. So with that, time is beginning to not exist. Okay? Which would mean if Atlantis went down long ago, then if it is rising, then it's like it never happened, or that it's not in a time period anymore. It's just there. There was this documentary on TV where they've had disappearing islands. 1 minute it's there, 5 years later it's gone. And then it comes back. But that's like one of the mysteries. There's that's out there as well. But let me go back to my notes before I get off course. So all these news stories and tragedies are meant to lower your vibrational frequency, so things can stay here. Okay, as long as they stay here, they can enslave the minds and souls of people. And that's how they want it, because they can rule. Anyway. Okay, so yeah, that's all that I want to say on that note. Okay, so I'm going to go into something else that was interesting. Okay, language. Okay, a long time ago, or in another dimension, we communicated telepathically, and when we stopped communicating telepathically, our frequencies lowered, and then we began to speak with the mouth. Okay, language, lingua, tongue. We have to use our tongue to talk. And then the languages split into more languages, and then we became separated and divided. So this was like in the Bible, if you want to compare it to the Bible, the fall, the Tower of Babel, was the fall of consciousness from telepathy into talking. Okay. And then when you talk, words are not feelings. Words are lower vibrational. Feelings are higher vibrational. Thoughts and feelings combined is telepathy. So we were communicating on a fifth dimensional level. Now we're back to 3D. When you look on paper and you read, that's 2D. Okay. That's why a lot of people do not, really take certain books that have been written on paper, but they go back to the engraved carvings, because and symbols hold more vibration than words. A lot of languages are written in symbols because they hold higher vibrations. Okay, so when you go back to the base languages, to the ancient languages, they hold more frequency and vibration. As you get to the more modern languages, there's less and less and less, okay? That's what happened. Okay, anyway. So, and also, okay, so I got another type of question that also relates to this, and I'm just going to go ahead and get into it. Makeup. Why do women wear so much makeup? What's up with all this makeup? How come guys, some guys wear eyeliner or do their eyebrows or, want to look a certain way? Well, makeup is actually another form of being able to recognize one of our other dimensional selves. Like if you remember back in the ancient Egyptian days where they painted and carved statues of their pantheon of gods and goddesses, they had bird-like features, reptile-like features, animal-like features, cat-like features. And the eyes, like of a woman, when she makes them up, sometimes she makes them look like bird-like eyes or cat-like eyes, reptile eyes, the contacts, and these were the higher versions of the Egyptian people at that time. Those were their higher ups, as you could say. So, of course, they are going to emulate the bird eye, the cat eye, the fierce, cat-line bone structure. They're going to enforce the beautiful bird-like feather colors on their eyes because they want their higher selves to be able to recognize their lower selves when they come to observe, when they come to communicate. This is why a lot of cultures still wear the same type of clothing that their ancestors wore and that people wore hundreds, thousands of years ago, because they don't know this. It's just become a tradition, but the spiritual meaning behind it is that so they can be recognized. If different cultures, when they have different ceremonies, they paint their face, they dress up like their deities, their spirits, their ancestors, so that when the ancestors and the deities and the spirits are coming, to see what's going on, they can recognize that, this person. It's all about recognition. That's why when people astral travel, they say, okay, so when you rise up out of your body, look at what you're wearing. Remember where you are. Look how, look at your clothing. Remember what you're wearing. Remember how to get to your house. Because when you raise up to astral travel and you need to return, you're going to have to recognize that person in the bed to return to. Do you understand? So it's all about recognizing the self, and if you do things not in vanity, like if you make up yourself in vanity, as we all do sometimes, but you don't know the meaning behind it, then yes, it's insanity. But if you know the meaning behind, makeup, cosmetics, clothing, then you understand what you're doing. Do you ever realize the fashion industry likes to influence the fashion of the time? They always resurrect like the 70s or the 60s clothing style, the 50s clothing style, the 80s clothing style. Now it's the 90s clothing style. They're doing this because, it's a part of the fashion industry, the entertainment industry, government, and all that. They are connected into creating the frequencies of Earth. Okay, so if I'm dressing like a hippie or somebody from the 70s or someone from the 90s, with all my colorful neons on, then can my 80s or 90s parallel self recognize, a part, it's they're creating more communication between the dimensions. That's just it. And sometimes when they need to create less communication between the dimensions, they lower the frequencies, But the one thing about music is that music is timeless, and the vibration is, very high because it penetrates the ears and both sides of the brain at the same time. So tone, frequency, energy, they are very important when you're trying to communicate with higher self, lower self. That's why a lot of people meditate with the singing bowls to raise their frequency, crystals, whatever. But there's always things on our path, in our lives, on the news, that lower your frequency. And a lot of people are waking up now. So the frequencies are rising, just like things are happening in the earth. So when you watch a lot of interviews on television of celebrities, especially the ones who are really, famous and into everything, they will tell you, I don't watch TV. Oh, I try not to watch TV. I don't have a TV in my house, because they know that it's used to program your frequencies. So they already know, because they're part of the entertainment world. They know what they're doing. And so, in every religious aspect, every, religious leader, every priest, you all see them wearing this crazy looking stuff, right? The priest wears the vicar hat. The vicar hat will remind you of the hats that the pharaohs wore back in the Egyptian days. Same thing, communicating with higher self, parallel self. Okay, you'll see people in the Middle East still walking around with the same exact clothing they walked around in 1,000 years ago. Okay, same thing. Even though they don't know it, that's why. Only in America. They're only in America. And other countries where the people who are in charge of the country aren't as ancient of a people as other people. What I'm trying to say, I'm going to break it down. Europeans are not as old as Africans as far as their existence on the planet. Nor, they're probably the youngest, which, is why they don't really value this tradition that most of the rest of the world and nations of color people do. They stick to tradition. They stick to traditional clothing, traditional culture, because they are in constant contact with all of themselves. That's why you go to the Native Americans, you go to the Chinese people, you go to the people who, like from India, who are really spiritual and in depth in in their culture. It's because they can communicate with all of themselves. They're very balanced in that way. When you can't communicate, it's like not being able to use some part of your brain and your motor skills, or your cognitive thought. It's kind of like that. So when you look around and see things, and some people dress like this and dress like that, you can kind of get a spiritual message out of it as well. Everything has different levels to it. There's a physical level, a spiritual level, and that's why sometimes you can't really argue with people, because they're not in that understanding yet. They're not there. They don't understand why a lot of people, and a lot of people don't understand it themselves, why they're doing it. They're doing it. But the reason behind the whole thing in the first place was a spiritual reason. You see these women walking around, with blonde hair, blue eyes, all this makeup on, but they're African American or they're Asian, and they're looking more European, as people would say, and that was probably their goal. But how are you going to recognize yourself if you don't look like yourself? So I kind of also think it's very important to stay true to the essence of who you are than to totally change everything. You know, if your ancestors and your higher self and lower self are a version of you, then you're going to only look like you. You get confused if you can't find the right body to get back into after astral traveling, you know. I think one of the reasons Nicki Minaj came out and went back to her natural black hair and more natural makeup is because we did not recognize her. You know, we couldn't recognize that person deep down inside. You know, we're all connected as a whole consciously, and you can't recognize something that you don't recognize. You know, if I put on a costume and totally change the way I look. This is why, you know, in Carnival in Brazil and in Mardi Gras, they put all this crap on to change the way they look. They put on masks, they put on da-da-da. So their higher selves cannot witness their lower selves committing all this sin and bad lower frequency vibrations. They're in disguise, okay? They're like, oh my God, I don't want my higher self to see me drinking and smoking, okay? If they just happen to be dreaming right now and have a glimpse of this time or this dimension, don't let them see me. You know, people really don't realize that that's a lot of reasons people wear masks, disguises, all this stuff. But when you want to be recognized, you're like, you know, you're looking in the mirror. You're saying, okay, this is me, recognize. When you're trying to hide, you put on a mask, you put on a wig, you put on everything, you know, because you're not happy with who you are and you don't want your higher self to recognize that right now, subconsciously, subliminally. You don't want your higher self to catch that frequency of lower vibration because it's built into our subconscious mind naturally to hide. That's why in the Bible, the metaphoric written Bible, Adam and Eve hid in the garden when they had realized that they were naked. And he said, who told you was naked? Who told them they were naked? Their lower vibration. Okay, so you have to realize, I'm gonna make a part 2 of this video because this is gonna go on too long. But I hope that you've gotten something out of this. Maybe if you have any more questions or concerns about any of the things that I've said on this video, put them in the comments and I will go into them on the next video, as well as some additional information that I also have for you. I will go into that as well. Okay, I'm gonna probably go into more of the male recognition because I've done the female with the makeup and the hair and all that stuff. I'm gonna go back to the male part of it. Okay.